Hello everybody and thank you for joining us on this Gradcracker webinar with SSE. During this webinar, our aim is to find out a bit more about SSE. We will talk about who they are, what they do, and also what opportunities our STEM students can apply to this year on Gradcracker. Starting with our lovely contact Jenna from the Early Careers team, we'll have an introduction to the business and also their opportunities. We will then speak to graduates about what life is like for them, what projects they have worked on, if they're involved in any networking groups, what training and development they have received, and also their future plans. We will then end the webinar by discussing the recruitment process and giving you an idea of how you can be successful, and also giving you lots and lots of hints and tips, not just from Jenna, but also Mariam and Jack as well. During this part of the webinar, we'll give you an insight about how they use Gradcracker to apply to SSE and how and why they have been so successful. And Mariam's definitely really excited to share how she used Gradcracker to search for the opportunity. If you've attended the webinars in this season so far, you will know that we've got the feature where you can submit your questions for us to ask the panel before the webinar starts. So thank you for those students who've submitted the questions so far. So let's get started and meet SSE. Jenna, as always, lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us on this webinar. As I mentioned before, you'll be giving us an insight into SSE, for the transmissions business unit in specifically as well, and also the roles which are currently live on Gradcracker that you can apply for now. So just so everybody knows, we've got a selection of roles that you can currently apply for. So we've got 4 summer placements covering lots of things from project management, regulation, CAD, engineering, and we've got 8 graduate opportunities as well. So covering things like quantity surveying, marine, business, electrical, the environment. So there's lots and lots of opportunities that you can apply to this year on Gradcracker. We're also, like I've just mentioned, joined by graduates Mariam and Jack, who we'll be speaking to in depth very shortly. So Jenna, tell everybody about SSE as an organisation.
Thanks, Carla, and thanks for having us today. Hi everyone, I'm Jenna McDonald. I'm the Early Career and Pipelines Manager for SSE Transmission, which is part of the SSE group, and I look after our graduate, apprentice and trainee programmes. SSE is one of the UK and Ireland's leading energy companies, and as of recently, we have an increasing number of projects in Southern Europe and Japan as well. Our vision is to be a leading energy company in a net zero world, and we're investing billions in electricity infrastructure to make this a reality. The SSE group is made up of generation, networks, and customer businesses. So our generation businesses are SSE Renewables and SSE Thermal, who develop, own, and operate renewable and flexible energy sources such as offshore and onshore wind, hydroelectric power, and thermal power plants as well. Then we've got our networks businesses, so SSEN Transmission and SSEN Distribution, who move this energy through the network. So transmission, which is where Jack, Mariam and I are based, take the energy from generation and transport it at high voltages across the network. And then it arrives at our distribution colleagues, who deliver this as electricities to homes and businesses. SSE have a customer arm in Ireland as well through our energy solutions business, and we invest heavily in infrastructure required for a low carbon future, such as EV charging and distributed energy solutions. But the part of the SSE group that we are here to share today is SSE Transmission, so the part of the business that's responsible for transporting that energy across long distances. Our managing director, Rob McDonald, always says there's no transition without transmission. So I think that just demonstrates how important the role that we play in enabling that energy transition is. We're investing really heavily in our early careers. Last year we took on 46 graduates, and this year we've just welcomed 59. So we've got a huge investment in early careers, and we're excited to be here today to tell you a bit more about SSE Transmission and hopefully sell ourselves as an employer of choice for all the Gradcracker users.
Yeah, definitely. You'll definitely sell yourselves. I mean, I've worked with SSE now for 15, 16 years, and it just blows my mind the types of opportunity that you've got for the students and the graduates. And hopefully we'll find out a lot more about that a little bit later on. So you mentioned there, Jenna, quite a few locations, so internationally and obviously within the UK as well. So where can students be based if they decide to apply to one of your opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our roles are based in Scotland within SSE and transmission. So whilst we've got that kind of overseas arm, that's in our generation businesses. But in terms of Scotland, our main base locations are Perth, Glasgow, Aberdeen, and Inverness. But we do have some roles in Cumbernauld, Dundee, and Elgin as well that are live on the hub too. On each of our adverts, it says where the specific role is based. So if you have a look on the hub, you can decide which team you want to apply for and also where you want to be based as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of quick fire questions, Jenna, or maybe just one that I can think about top of my head. Is if a student wants to apply to more than one opportunity, can they, or do they just need to focus on their ideal position?
Yeah, we ask that you focus on your ideal position, but there is a point in the application form where you can select if you want to be considered for other teams as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're maybe unsuccessful for one of the teams you've applied for, then we can share your application if we think you're maybe better suited to another team. So there is that opportunity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jenna. And I mentioned a little bit earlier on about the breadth of opportunity that you do have at SSE.
Mhm.
So with your summer opportunities and your graduate opportunities as well, there really is something for everybody. You know, I've mentioned about anything from the likes of engineering to regulation. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about these opportunities and what kind of student you are looking for to apply to these opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're totally right. We've got engineering and non-engineering positions live at the moment. Our applications close a month today, actually, so the 2nd of November, so plenty of time to get your applications in. All of our roles for the graduate positions require a minimum of a 2-2 bachelor's degree in a related degree discipline. And again, those are shown on the hub in terms of which degree discipline we look for the different roles. Our engineering roles cover electrical, mechanical, and civil engineering, and there's a variety of teams you can apply for them. And our non-engineering, as you say, cover project management, regulation, business, quantity surveying, land, marine, and consents and environment. So there's a lot going on there, lots to choose from.
Yeah.
Um, for our summer placements as well, they run from June to August each year. So it's a 12-week placement over the summer. And it's a great opportunity to kind of spend time working in a team, getting a bit of industry experience while you're still at university. We've had really great success from our summer placements in the past where they've returned year on year or come back as part of our graduate programme as well. So that's a really good kind of pipeline to join our graduate programme. And in terms of what we're looking for, I suppose just people that are really keen and passionate about the energy industry, really want to make a difference and help us in the transition to net zero. People that are kind of excited about the business and the future of what we can actually deliver together. And just, yeah, people that are interested in what we do, I suppose, is the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Jenna's just mentioned, you know, the being involved in the placement or internship program can be a stepping stone onto the graduate program. And Mariam's nodding away like mad because Mariam is a case study of this. You know, she's done it, so she's going to go through that a little bit more. So, what is the success rate, Jenna, of people doing a placement and then going on to the graduate program? Do you see a lot of people transitioning from the internship to the grads?
Yeah, 100%. We use it as a pipeline for our graduate programme. So it is, we don't just take on summer placements for the sake of it, we take it
Mm.
because we want them to turn into graduates. So depending on performance, obviously, we look to offer people roles on our graduate programme if they've done a summer placement with us. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all really considered in our approach and that we actually want to convert those summer placements into graduates.
Lovely. Perfect. Thank you very much, Jenna. So what we're going to do now is hand over to Sophie, who's going to speak to Mariam and Jack in a bit more detail. So stay with us. What we're going to do is come back to Jenna and got a bit of a different theme to the webinar this week. So we're going to come back to Jenna kind of halfway through Mariam and Jack's chat. And we're going to speak to Jenna all about the graduate programme, what's involved in that from Jenna's point of view, before then going back to the grads. So, Sophie, I'm going to hand over to you and the lovely Mariam and Jack.
Thank you very much, Carla, and thank you very much for that introduction, Jenna. I'm really excited to hear more about what Mariam and Jack have been up to so far. So Mariam, I'm going to start with you. We're just going to find out a little bit about you both before we kind of dive into the details of what you've been up to. So Mariam, can you tell our audience where you went to university, what you studied, and what you're doing at SSE now?
Hi everyone. So I studied civil engineering with architecture at the University of Glasgow. graduated last summer, and I am a graduate project engineer with SSE Transmissions. I've been a graduate for 1 year now. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mariam. And Jack, same questions to you, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi, I'm Jack. I went to Strathclyde University, and I studied electrical mechanical engineering there. As for coming into SSE, I've come in as a graduate engineer for the system performance team, and right now I'm actually kind of rotating around other relevant teams as I go through the scheme. So it's a lot to talk about.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jack. So brief introductions over. Mariam, we're going to dive in and find out a little bit more about your journey at SSE so far. So as Carla mentioned, you did a summer internship at SSE and have then come back as a graduate. So let's talk a little bit about that internship and what you did there before returning as a grad.
Yep. So I actually applied for my summer placement through Gradcracker when I was on my 3rd year of uni, and I applied to join SSE as a project manager. Just studying civil engineering, I've never really experienced project management before, and I thought that was a great opportunity for me to join. And I joined. I went through the interview process, got accepted, joined SSE, like Jenna said, from June till August as a project manager, and I had a great time. I was exposed in so many things over such a short period, and it made me realize at the end of the placement what I want to do. I entered thinking, oh, project management, that sounds great. But then at the end, I was like, it sounds great, but I kind of like the technical part of engineering more. So at that point, I spoke to Kirsten. At the time, she was HR, and I asked if I could join project engineering. And that was my route into a graduate project engineering role. Had my review, spoke to Kirsten, and I was then fast forwarded into the graduate project engineering scheme.
Fantastic. And from somebody who knows nothing about these types of things, when you're talking about project management and project engineering, what are the key differences there that that our audience might pick up?
So project management, it's kind of in the name. You're managing the project, so you're managing the different your different disciplines that bring a project together. So you're managing engineering, financing, health and safety, environmental sustainability. You're managing a project, so you're the key point of contact for everyone in the team to come to you, and you speak a lot with contractors if the project is in construction or it's even in development. You speak to different people across the team, and you're in charge of time scales, key milestones that you need to accomplish. While as in project engineering, you're just in charge of the engineering part of the project. So your key milestones, obviously there's key milestones in all the other disciplines, but you're focusing on your key milestones in engineering and you're relaying it to the project managers. It's more technical, more hands-on than project management. Project management is hands-on, but just in a completely different role. Yeah. So
fantastic. And how brilliant that you were able to discover that during your internship, that you really liked a lot of the elements of project management, but actually that wasn't the right route. And also that you were able to then stay with SSE and say, actually, I'd love to stay here, but actually I want a slightly different role. And being able to come back and do that is a huge benefit of doing an internship. And we talk about this all the time, don't we, Carla? That even if you do an internship and you decide that actually great experience, not what I want to do, how valuable is that to then be able to take into whatever you choose to do in the future? So that's brilliant. Taking a step back, Mariam, why did you decide on the energy industry, coming from a civil engineering background? What was that kind of connection for you?
That's such a great question. So for me, it was the project management role because I wanted to experience project management. But during that role, my eyes opened to how every industry requires civil engineers because at the end of the day, we are the foundation of it. yes, like the energy industry, they transform energy and there's so many other aspects to it, but they still require civil engineers. And that was kind of the eye-opening moment when I entered into the project management role, and I was like, oh my God, there's civil engineers here. They actually have they actually have a lot of stuff to do, so they're quite valued. And in my head, I was like, energy, that's gonna be an interesting summer placement. But entering and leaving, realizing that I could potentially apply to nuclear if I want, or oil rigs if I want to, and they require my my degree and my knowledge. It was a big transition because I was on my third year of university going to my fourth year, which is my last year, and that kind of opened my eyes that no, just because it's an energy industry doesn't mean they don't need civil engineers, or no, just because it's a certain type of industry doesn't mean they don't need engineering.
Yeah.
Amazing. Exactly. And I was really hoping that's exactly what you were going to say, because again, this is something that we always try and get across, that skills are needed across so many different industry sectors. And civil engineering isn't maybe a natural association to go into the energy industry, but just as you've described, there's so many opportunities and really, really fascinating work. So that's brilliant that you've given us that kind of overview. Tell us a little bit about what you have been doing at SSE so far since you've returned as a grad.
So for my first year of grad scheme, it's kind of similar to what Jack said earlier. We did a lot of rotations, but because I was civil based, they wanted to give the civil grads more background into the electrical and mechanical aspect of transmissions. So we had those like really short placements to give us an overview of the different departments, and then also went wider into external departments where we could join environmental, sustainability, operations if we wanted to. This was kind of our choice of what we are leaning towards. And now this year it's more longer placements, kind of designed to what I want as well. And the placement that I'm in right now, it's GI project engineering, which is ground investigation project engineering. And the ground investigation team where we go over borehole logs. If there's any civil engineers, they'll know what I'm talking about in this field. But basically, in order to build something on the ground, you need to understand what you're building on. So you need to take samples of the ground. So you do boreholes, dig deep until you hit bedrock, and from that you have a profile of how the ground actually looks and decide on what type of load you can apply on the ground. Can you even build on this ground? Is it even possible to do that? And that's just a safety precaution for the future. So when you build on it, the building doesn't crumble.
Fantastic. There's so many things that I want to talk about with your experiences so far, but I also want to just get a quick overview from Jack before we come back into the real detail of everything that you've been doing. So Jack, let's jump back over to you just so you can give us a kind of a quick overview of your experiences so far. I mean, you've come from mechanical electrical engineering background. Was energy quite a natural association for you, or was that again something that you weren't sure would be the right fit?
So yeah, going into university, I guess I kind of had no. I knew I wanted to be an engineer, but as maybe that's why I chose a dual electrical mechanical degree, because I didn't really know where I was going to go. But I think that's maybe to Strathclyde's benefit. They do have a lot of industry connections with power industry. They're actually set up with the Power Academy Scholarship. So these sort of things are kind of avenues into the power industry, and actually it sort of really clicked for me. And I thought, wow, this is actually something that I find really interesting. And from that, yeah, it just kind of spiraled from there. So
amazing. And you joined SSE September last year?
Yeah, same time as Mariam, same
Yeah.
graduate intake.
Fantastic. And tell us a little bit more about what you have been up to in that first year at SSE.
Absolutely. So maybe different to Mariam, my kind of placement structure was sort of longer placements. So when I first joined System Performance, my kind of host team, that was a 6-month stay with them, and then from then I've done sort of 3-month rotations into other sort of relevant teams. But it's actually been flexible because it's even right now. I should be at the end of my 3-month placement, but there's a bit of work or a bit of work opportunity that came up to allow me to uh, to help out. So I've extended it by 4 weeks, and it's really flexible like that. Where if there's an interesting project, I can just get involved in it, which I really enjoyed.
Fantastic. And that first rotation, so that's 6 months at in system performance. When you first joined SSE, and the first few weeks, were you directly into there, or is there some kind of training that you go on before you go into that team? How does that first kind of initial stage work?
So I think at the very first few weeks there, it was a lot more to do with the sort of graduate induction, the kind of SSE induction. So the first 2 days were spent up in Perth, in the HQ, getting to meet the other graduates, some getting our IT equipment or PPE, a few sort of training modules on how to access a lot of the different things SSE offers, and speaking to upper grads as well about their experiences. So the first 2 days were like that, and then the sort of rest of that week and the week after was a lot more training, a lot of e-learning, just to really sort of get it done. And then beyond that is when we would go into our teams. And I guess when I joined System Performance, it was really like straight into it, and I think that was good. So it was good for me. There's straight into it in the sense that here's an access to a lot of really smart people that know what they're talking about. Go ask them questions, go figure it out. Here's some softwares you need, get to grips with them, and then we'll start you on being able to use them to work. So
brilliant. And system performance team, tell us a little bit more about what that team does on a daily basis.
No, great question, because I think even a lot of people in SSE don't know. No, system performance, really, how my head of department likes to call us as a sort of in-house consultancy almost. So we're quite a rare group in that we handle a lot of the studies and the analysis that needs to be done for projects to actually progress up through stages. So initial sort of studies that are needed for certain components that are coming onto the network. So anything from a high voltage DC link, a HVDC link, to certain stability equipment. If there's something that needs to be put onto the network, it needs to be studied and analysed to make sure it's not going to damage any other equipment, or that it plays nicely with everything else. So system performance are kind of in the planning space in that way, where they're kind of a key stakeholder in almost every step of the project, and almost they have a kind of final say off on what equipment is allowed to be put on. So you hope by the end of the project life cycle it'll be ready to go. But that system performance is always there to do the studies for it. So yeah.
Brilliant. So going into that role, coming from mechanical and electrical background, it sounds like there's quite a lot of software involved in that, different systems that you've been using. Was that systems that you knew of before or used during university, or was this coming into things completely blind and not knowing what software you were using and how to use it?
So for the most of the systems I use in system performance, I had no idea. It was totally new to me, and it's it's quite rare to have sort of the skills in these softwares unless you are coming. Maybe you've worked in a consultancy for a long time, so for a graduate, it's not a software you really would be exposed to. But the process again for that was you're just working alongside so many people that know the software inside and out, and you have direct access to them to help you get set up. They've set up. I've found with most teams that I've been in for specific softwares that we need to use, they've kind of created their own sort of user guides or quick start guides to get you up to speed with them, and then there are sort of few opportunities. Sometimes it's usually a few times a year maybe, but there is bespoke training for these softwares as well. But you kind of get in and you get taught enough to kind of start with it anyway, and then the trainings are usually supplementary as well. And there's also a lot of training material that are just that is being carried over from different trainings as well. So it seems daunting at first, and it is a bit daunting, and stuff doesn't work. But the pressure's not there, I guess. You're really there to learn it in your own speed, and like I say, ask people questions to get up to speed.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing. Ask questions. No question's a silly question. That's what people are there for, to help and support you. And it seems like there's a lot of that stuff in place for you when you first join into one of those teams. So following your placement with System Performance, and we will come back to talk about some kind of key projects that you've been involved in. What teams have you now been in since then?
Yeah, so my second placement was with the control center, which is based in Perth. So for anyone that knows a little bit about the power industry in the UK, we are kind of split into three transmission operators, and SSE Transmissions, the operator for the north of Scotland. So really anything from the north of Perth and north, including the sort of the Western Isles and the Shetland Isles as well. So the control center, I like to think of it as almost the brain of the whole operation. They're the ones that handle the sort of real-time operation of the network. It's not just a case where you can build components and then let them do their thing. It's stuff that needs to be constantly monitored. There could be any number of fault on the network. There could be a storm. There could be a tree falling on a line. All of these will have an impact, and the control center's there to sort of react to that in real time. So again, it's really interesting placement. It's They have their own sort of area within the building, and there's so many teams and so many people that need to feed into that kind of sort of brain to make it run. So really interesting. My current placement, which is my third one, is with the power system modeling team. So they sort of handle, maintain, and kind of develop our sort of central, we call it the master model. That we've recently just moved over to a new software, so from SSE to Power Factory, Big Silent Power Factory, which kind of brings us in line with the rest of the transmission operators across the UK, which is it was much needed. I think it was much better software. So Power System Modeling team just sort of maintain that model representation of what the network in the north of Scotland looks like, and from that we're allowed to do studies and add to it and figure things out.
Amazing. I'm going to be totally honest, a lot of that went over my head, but it sounded very impressive. And also, I just thought when I was listening to you talk, Jack, how much it comes across that you really enjoy what you do, and how interesting you find it. And I think that's half the battle, isn't it? If you find it interesting and you enjoy what you do. And I think the experience you've had as well, the three departments that you've worked in so far, has given you a really, really great overview of the business. So yeah, I'm going to come back and find out more about some of the kind of favourite things that you've done so far. But I'm going to come back to Mariam now to find out again a little bit more about the team that you're working in, Mariam, and some of the key projects that you've been involved in so far that you can kind of tell our audience all about.
So I am currently working in the ground investigation team, but also in the background, I'm working on the project engineering civils team, which is where I'll end up after my grad scheme. So I'm helping on with projects that they're working on right now. One of the most interesting ones that I'm working with, supporting the engineers with, is flood mitigation projects. So Scotland, prone to flooding. Most of our sites are prone to flooding. So we are studying some of our sites to see how much it would flood in a 1 in a 1,000 year storm event. So basically, a very, very extreme weather scenario that will happen once in 1,000 year. And the interesting stuff about this is how you would mitigate the flood, basically have a mitigation for the flood so our sites do not flood and are accessible in these kind of scenarios, to keep the lights on and we don't damage infrastructure. And I've learned so much about the solutions of how to mitigate flood, what is out there. Also talking with the control room to see what specific equipment on site that are critical and what are not, and if this is flooded, what will happen, and if this is not flooded, what will happen, kind of studying the scenarios and different schemes. That's one interesting project I'm part of.
Wow.
I've been in that control room when I came to visit you in Scotland. I sat in the chair you know, the chair, and there's just so many buttons. Oh, I loved it. I didn't press any buttons, Mariam. Do not worry, I didn't press anything, but I really wanted to. It was like all flashing and everything. I was dead excited.
I love the acknowledge button. Acknowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the engineer there made me sit on my hands, to be honest with you. It's like, Carla, just I was like,
I think that was probably wise, Carla.
yeah, no, I do as well. But I really enjoyed it. Mariam, maybe we could meet there one day and you could let me press the acknowledge button.
Oh. Yeah.
Big responsibility.
I'm still waiting to have my placement there.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'll come with you. I'll be your buddy for the week.
That would be nice.
Oh no, brilliant, Mariam. That's a really, really interesting project. And again, not something that I would think that, you know, you would be kind of doing at SSE as a civil engineer. It's not sort of a project that you'd think, oh, well, I'll be doing something like this as part of my grad scheme. How do you mitigate the risks of flooding then? Give us an example.
Well, basic solution to that is build a flood wall.
Yeah.
a wall around the site, but obviously that comes with its own issues because you can't just build the wall and displace this amount of water that wants to flow naturally through your site. So you kind of have to speak to like external stakeholders like environmentalists, SEPA are big ones to help you study flood levels that will occur on site. But flood walls are one of them. We tend to stay away from them just because you're displacing a huge amount of water, and that's not good for the environment, especially if our site is near a river. Other scenarios are kind of having a waterproof membrane around the control building. So every site has a control room building in its own that is connected to the main brain in the Perth office. And the equipment inside are classified as critical equipment. So a waterproof membrane around the building, make sure that it goes down to the foundations so the water doesn't enter from the basements. Another thing is also transformers. Those are the main big equipment on site. We would build their bunds higher. So bunds are usually built to catch any oil leaks for environmental reasons. So transformers have a bund around them naturally. For flood, we would technically just build it a bit higher. I think, I know all of these equipments on an electrical substation just because of my first couple of months in like my grad scheme. We, as a civils coming back from civils background, I had absolutely no idea of what a transformer is or what is in a substation. What is a substation? And actually, and I think that's one thing I really appreciate with the grad scheme with SSE transmission is that I got to speak to a lot of knowledgeable people in different departments to help me get to the knowledge I am today, to be able to help with projects like flood mitigation, to know what a transformer is, what a substation is, what are the critical information. I don't need to know it, but I need to know the person that knows it. And then from just being told this information multiple times, you kind of already get a grasp and understand what's critical and what's important and how everything just meshes together. So.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And that kind of bank of knowledge, you know, is going to support everything that you do from now, isn't it? You know, and it's actually going to continue to build and build and build. But these things take time, don't they? You know, and as you rotate it through different departments and do different projects, you're just going to get more and more knowledge to kind of help support you as you go through the career. So that was really, really interesting, Mariam. Thank you very much. Jack, let's hear a little bit more about some of your favourite projects that you've been involved in so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'll take it right back to the start as soon as I joined with system performance. So kind of the main sort of project I started to look at there involved, it's called small signal stability analysis, which is quite a fancy term for really, we're taking a model within a software of a component that's in our network, and we're just starting injecting currents and voltages into it to see how it will react, how different components in that model will react to it. So the sort of first one I had to look at was a model of SSE's. It's a 3-terminal high voltage direct current link, which is actually I think at that time was only the second one to have been built in the world, which is again, it's really interesting technology. So we took a model of that and a few sort of larger offshore wind farms that we had. Like I say, we injected some disturbances into it. We analysed how the system actually responded to that, and from that, we were then able to actually determine the sort of level and quality of the response. Is it going to be a response that starts to grow? Is it going to be one that actually kind of cuts out with time? What's the kind of maximum disturbance that we could see there? So that's just sort of one type of study the system performance handles, and I felt quite lucky to kind of be given that right at the start. So it was a lot of playing about with software, a lot of errors, a lot of everything. But by the end, it was just something very interesting to get involved with. Something I think not something that was really covered by my degree in university, but I felt, and this is something it's maybe the main thing I enjoy about SSE, I've actually been able to use my degree right out the get go and kind of use that knowledge again over the 4 years that I did to bring it into my work as well.
Amazing. It's fascinating. There's so much that you've got involved in. I mean, we've in the 15-20 minutes we've spent talking to you two, the amount of things that you've done in the last 12 months is amazing, and the amount of exposure you've had. Is there any other kind of key projects that jump out of you, Jack, that you've been involved in the last 12 months?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think something that's really exciting and interesting that's going on, I guess, in the kind of the power industry for the UK right now is it's called connections reform, which some of you might know about. Connection reform is the sort of larger system operator, the kind of the governor of power in the UK. It's their push to try and change the connections process. So for any wind farms wanting to connect into the network, for demand centers, anything, it kind of got into a real big backlog, and if it kept going on the way it was going, we wouldn't meet our net zero targets. So the connections reform was a kind of stamp of the foot to say no, we're changing how this process is happening. If you're ready to connect, you're going to get bumped up the queue, you're going to connect. So it was a big move, but one that was definitely needed, I think. So given that kind of context, as I went into the power system modeling team, it's then their job they don't have a confirmed list of what projects are going to be on the network in 10 years, but they're going to need to model it anyway. So we started to model the kind of high confidence projects that we think are going to be on the network in 10 years. So I came into the team at that time to kind of bring together this connection reform model, as we called it, to then be able to sort of do studies in a way that we're pretty confident about. So there's a lot of change that's happened. A lot of change that's happened in the industry in the last 12 years. 12 months. A lot of change that's happening in the company. I feel I've hit teams at the right time where that change is happening. So it's been really exciting.
Absolutely, and a lot of different technologies that you've been involved with as well. So brilliant exposure. It's been really interesting hearing about the projects, but I think at this point it's really good to bring Jenna back in, Carla, about the kind of overall graduate programme.
Yeah, if we can. Thank you, Mariam and Jack, for your information so far about your careers at SSE. And Jenna, I do want to speak to you a little bit more about the graduate programme and what that looks like. So we've just been hearing from Mariam and Jack, and they seem to have quite different experiences. So can you tell me kind of the traditional graduate programme, how that looks to you, who manages the graduate programme? The students get to choose their rotations. Tell me a little bit more about how that works.
Yeah, of course. So regardless of the discipline that you come in with or the team that you join, our graduate programme runs for 2 years. So for our current intake that we're advertising for, that would be September 26 to September 28, which is crazy to say.
I know, I'm just saying that.
I know. It's funny that we're recruiting so soon. It seems too far in advance. And similarly, regardless of what team you join, you're guaranteed a substantive post on completion of the programme. So obviously it depends on performance, but we don't just kind of guess the numbers of graduates that we want to bring in. We actually look at our workforce plan and decide how many people we need in X amount of years, and that's how many graduates we'll bring in. So we kind of work backwards from there. So everyone is guaranteed a position at the end of the programme. Similarly, regardless of the programme that you're on, you're set objectives whilst you're on the graduate programme, and these are reviewed by your line manager and yourself. And that just kind of allows for clarity in terms of what you should be working towards, if you're on track with your learning, if there's any more support that you need. And it allows for the early careers team, so myself and my colleagues, to kind of help in any way that we can as well, and make sure that we're given the relevant education, experience and exposure as well to our graduates.
Yeah.
Kind of as Mariam and Jack were saying, we don't typically follow the set 6-month for placement rotations that other companies might do. Instead, we ask our teams what they want their graduates to learn, what they want them to see in order to kind of succeed in that substantive post after the programme. So we tailor our placement lengths to suit individual teams and individual roles, just in order to kind of make the most of the 2-year programme. In terms of support, the graduates will all have a line manager, they'll have a buddy and a mentor as well. And for our engineering graduates, their mentor is someone who is in the same engineering institution as them. So if you were a part of the IET, for example, we would match you with an IET mentor in order to help with chartership. And they have kind of regular check-ins as well throughout their programme. I suppose it's difficult to say kind of the layout of the graduate programme when there's so many different programmes and engineering and non-engineering. But I suppose that's kind of the similarities between all of the programmes in terms of the length and kind of what they do. In terms of development, again, looks different between the different programmes, but we do have a core development programme for all SSE graduates, so not just the transmission ones. They all follow the same kind of learning objectives for the first 2 years. So they've got things like introduction to finance, introduction to the energy markets, they do insights discovery, that sort of thing. So there's a kind of learning plan that everyone follows as well. And then depending on engineering and non-engineering, they've got other trainings that they would participate in as well.
Yeah, it's so good to hear that you kind of you're with them throughout the process of the 2 years, and the help and support is there for the graduates during the graduate programme. Jenna, just thinking from a student's point of view who might be watching, you know, how do students thrive as part of the graduate programme? So I'm guessing it's, you know, networking, showing commitment, putting yourself out there, thirst for knowledge, which we've definitely seen coming through from Mariam and Jack in abundance. But what else would you say? Jack's nodding, like, yes, that's all me. What else? What else? You've got it, honey, you've got it. But what else, Jenna, would you say makes a student successful as part of the graduate programme?
Yeah, I think you've covered most of the things that we look for, to be fair. I think people that really put their hands up for things like Mariam and Jack are doing, actually kind of volunteering to do things like this. We're really keen to engage the next generation in STEM initiatives, and we've got an objective for all of our graduates and trainees to do 3 STEM days per year, which is going to primary schools, secondary schools, university careers fairs, even things like this as well. So I think just people that are really engaged and excited about actually giving back and inspiring more people, like obviously people that are watching this just now, they might become our graduates in future, so it's good for them to maybe get involved in this next year, just to kind of continue that chain. I think that's really important in terms of kind of giving back and engaging more people in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're looking forward to doing a webinar next year, aren't we, Sophie?
We are already.
Yeah, already. I mean, you two have just been so inspiring. They just think, right, let's get the next grads on. So lovely. Thank you, Jen. I'm going to come back to you shortly, but we're just going to go back to Soph now and find out a little bit more about extracurricular activities.
Yes, so yeah, it'd be great to kind of to finish off. We've covered a lot about you know, what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and how fascinating the projects are. But I think it's always nice to hear a little bit more about life outside of the day job. So Mariam, tell us a little bit more about, you know, any networking, team events, anything like that, the social side of things, I suppose.
So I'd say the grads are very social, especially the project engineering grads. We tend to go on like quarterly catch-ups. We just went on a dinner together to celebrate our 1-year grad scheme. So there's like plenty of stuff going around. We also started a SharePoint for events, sports events. So we've got like football games, badminton, some social events as well. Like we go out for like bowling and laser tag. So as a bunch within SSE, the grads are very social and they want to meet new people, especially if they've moved from across the world to Scotland and they don't know anyone previously. So I'd say it's a very active social group, and whatever like niche you want to join, you could either start your own or find one that exists and start it. So one of my main focuses was well-being when I joined SSE, and I became a well-being champion. And they usually advertise beach cleanups or walks for charities. And that's kind of outside of work hours. And you could always share it with your team and you'll find people that are interested and they join with.
So lots and lots of different things. Yeah,
Yes.
amazing. It sounds great that you've got that community of grads and you do all get together, people in the same position as you, as you said, especially if you are moving long distances to relocate. Jack, do you have anything to add to that? Is there anything that you've been involved in that kind of outside of what Mariam's already covered?
Yes, I think we'll echoing a lot what Mariam said as well. Yeah, the grads are sociable. I've actually made some really good friends. Outside of work, from work, outside of work. I think maybe something to add, just something quite good that I think my kind of home team does is every month we'll kind of have a team day where everyone's in the office, and actually usually, or for the last few months, we've been kind of doing these sort of cultural exchanges, you might call it. We have quite a culturally diverse team. So each month, someone's been picked to kind of present a bit about where they're from, their culture, and most importantly, they bring in some lunch, some foods
I knew food was going to be involved in this.
and it's been great for me. So it's things like that. That's just something that I think it's really sort of highlighted in SSE, and it's something I look forward to every month. And I think we're maybe inspiring some other teams to maybe go off and do the same thing. And just sort of brings everyone closer together. Something that's not work, but we do relate it back to work at some point. We start talking about the power grids in other countries and everything. But no, it's things like that. It's just it lightens up a wee bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and also to add to Jack's point that usually teams do have monthly meetups. So I'm in the central region. We usually do it like the end of every month or a couple or like 2 months, and also it's a great opportunity to meet new starters. So they do this like new game that when did you start? How long have you been working with SSE? And it goes kind of all around the room with the oldest person who's been working at SSE and then the new start, so you get to kind of meet new people all the time.
That's great. It's great that everybody gets to meet everybody in those types of situations as well. And that really helps to build your network. And you were talking about that earlier, weren't you, Mariam, about how important it is to kind of know the right people to go to for certain things. So that kind of brings it all together. Well, that has been absolutely fascinating listening to you both about your careers so far. But we do need to go back to Carla now to find out more about the recruitment process and how our students can apply and get the jobs at SSE.
Yes, lovely. Thank you very much, Sophie. I'm coming back to you, Jenna, now. So we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar the opportunities that are available. There are lots. So just to reiterate, summer placements or internships and dual graduate opportunities as well, which are now live on your hub on Gradcracker with a closing date of a month's time. I can't believe you said that. I was like, oh my goodness, 2nd of November. So make sure you get your applications in. When a student comes to your hub, Jenna, they read the job description, click on the apply link. Can you go through each step of the application process?
Yeah, of course. So our first step is to submit an application online. We would advise just getting these in as early as possible in case we've got lots of applications. Sometimes we do close early. So you've still got a month, so get them in. The initial application form is uploading a CV and a cover letter, and with any company, we would just ask that you kind of tailor it to the specific company that you're applying for. The application form also allows you to detail how you found out about the role. So if you've attended this webinar today, then that would be really great to get on there, as it just shows you're interested in the company and you've actually come along and had a listen. The application form also allows you to tell us if you're interested in being considered for other teams, like I said before. So if you've kind of got multiple interests, then you can detail that on the form as well. Once you've applied, we then ask you to take our online tests, which is a situational judgment test. So they are scenario based and have examples of situations you might face as a graduate. They're based on our values, which are safety, service, efficiency, sustainability, excellence, and teamwork. So we just ask that you kind of look into our values and consider them in your answers. And then we've also got an ability test as well, and these ones are timed. So if you need any reasonable adjustments, we've got an email address on all of the applications and on the hub, so you can have a wee look and get in touch if there's anything that you need, and we can make some requests beforehand. If you're successful at the online test stage, then we have a pre-recorded video interview where you record yourself answering the questions. We know these are awkward, nobody likes them, which is why we have some practice tests available as well, so you can familiarise yourself with the process and become even just a little bit more comfortable with doing them. For the video interview, candidates that succeed, we would tend to say have done their research, so on the company, on the team that they're applying for, and we really want you just to sell why you've applied and why you'd be a good fit in the organisation. After that, the final stage is an assessment centre, which we host in person in Perth. Yep. So as Jack said, our headquarters is in Perth, so we like to kind of keep things local and reinvest in the local community. So we hold our assessment day in Perth, and that is a group exercise, so working with other people who have applied for the role as well, and an individual interview. And again, we just ask that you really sell why you want to work with us. Something that we're asked a lot about, especially in the kind of video interview side of things, is our stance on the use of AI during interviews. And from our side, we've got assessors that watch all of the video interviews, so they're not kind of marked by computers, and we can really tell when applicants are reading answers from the screen and they're not kind of coming out naturally. So we would advise, instead of heavily relying on AI during your interview, that you use it as a preparation tool in advance. So using it maybe to structure answers that you think questions might come up, and also to do your research on the company, but not overly relying on it when you're actually doing your video interview would probably be our best advice. And then if you're successful, we'll let you know and you'll join us in September. So yes, it's a lengthy process, but we've got some amazing candidates, as you can see, from our recruitment process. So yeah.
Definitely worth it.
For sure, yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jenna. And what we're going to do now is finish with Mariam and Jack and ask them to give their hints and tips. So as Mariam mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, Mariam, you used Gradcracker to do your research to apply to your summer placement. So just tell the students how you did prepare. So obviously you looked on the hub, you read the job description, but do you have any key hints and tips about how you put your application together?
Yes. So one thing I always prepared for before any interviews, even the recorded ones, was to refresh my mind of all the projects I've done previously at uni. And as like my summer placements and my job experience, if any of the students do have any, I'd say if you just remember the important projects, the key aspects, what went wrong, what went right, that would really help you answering the questions, because they're quite fresh in your mind and you kind of know what you've done, so you answer the questions more naturally and not having to follow a script. I'd say that's one thing I've practiced with. Practicing with your friends before. I had a list of questions that I found online. You can find a lot of questions online, kind of technical, but also ones that ask about your character and teamwork and stuff like that. If you practice with a friend kind of in the interview process, it's very helpful, very beneficial. Record yourself as well if you want to. There's so many ways you can
watch yourself back.
Yeah, and that's kind of why the recording video, the practice sessions are quite helpful, because you get to see your body language, or what words you're using too much and not enough.
Basically. Yeah, absolutely. I love the point that you made there, Mariam, about what projects that you've done and what went wrong as well as what went right. I think that's what SSE will be looking for. So, you know, not everything goes right in life. So what went wrong? How did you overcome that issue? You know, what's your thinking behind overcoming the issue as well? I think that's a really good point that you've got across there, Mariam. So thank you very much, and thank you for those hints and tips. And we're going to go on to Jack now. So Jack, once a student starts as a graduate like you did at SSE, what hints and tips can you give? And I must say that this question is from Natalie at RGU. Thanks, Natalie.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. I think a lot of it's really already been covered throughout the talk today, but it's just be curious, kind of be yourself. You just need to go and ask questions, and I think with SSE you're just going to have immediate access to a lot of really knowledgeable people, and I think honestly you don't need to go so in depth to start. It's just actually asking who to talk to is usually the key to it, and a lot of people it might be their first sort of actual exposure to real sort of, I guess, corporate work, and it's quite daunting, but you'll settle into it soon enough. And with the sort of, or at least the way that SC does it, where you get to meet all the other graduates and you know where everyone's going, everyone's got that kind of common thread, and then you can, you'll soon feel comfortable. So.
Fantastic, lovely. Thank you very much, Jack, and thank you everybody for joining us on this amazing webinar today with SSE. So like we've just been mentioning, the opportunities are currently live and open on the Gradcracker Hub, so make sure you get your applications in. As Jenna mentioned, make sure you reference this webinar as well. Jenna and Jenna's team would love to hear that you've heard from Jenna and the graduates, and you can say that you've gained lots of experience from this webinar as well. The webinar will be live on the SSE Hub tomorrow, and we'll also break down, I don't know how they're going to do this in the office, but they're also going to break down the webinar into bite-sized chunks as well, so you can go and re-watch some of the moments that Mariam said, Jack has said, and obviously Jenna as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Me and Surf will be back on the 13th of October, where we're joined by Siemens. But until then, have a great week, and we'll see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.